This program is brought to you in part by the partners and friends of Creflo Ministries.
The 2024 Grace Life Conference is already in the works. Our Mentality, Ministers and Leaders, and Youth Conference will all take place during Grace Life. Register now through October 20th to receive a one-time 10% discount on your entire order in the Dome Digital Store during Grace Life 2024. Just scan the QR code, text Grace Life to 51555, or visit CrefloMinistries.org. We'll see you in July.
This is your world, so let's vow to make it a better place. Let every heart that needs to know your love is here to stay. It's time we live a new life. Let us love shine bright in you. We're saved by His grace, so we embrace your love today. We are changed.
Hey everybody. Listen, we have been on this journey of grace as we look back at the 2023 Grace Life Conference. And on today's broadcast, we want to talk about manhood. You heard it right. The revival of manhood has begun. And at the 2023 Grace Life Conference, we took the time to address some of the law-based teachings on manhood, which could very well be responsible for some of the toxic forms of masculinity that we see today. These man laws have plagued past and present generations, and we need to recognize the truth. Jesus Christ is the true example of manhood. We got a chance to do just that at our men's session. Now, for our women who watch this broadcast, you're gonna get a sneak peek into this session with us as we redefine manhood. So stay tuned, and I'll see you later on.
So for the men's sessions, I like the fact that we're able to have a little bit more intimate time with Dr. Dollar, not necessarily one-on-one, but in the men's sessions, you have more of a direct connection with Pastor. You're able to get your questions answered. You're able to get a little bit more direct word in the men's sessions for men. One thing we do talk about is, of course, dating. Another thing that we do talk about that's been really big is our emotional makeup and dealing with our emotions. And a lot of men, we're not encouraged to do that. These men's sessions kind of give you that openness to be able to understand that as a man, it's okay to have emotions, and we have to learn how to manage them. We also learn about leadership in the men's sessions as far as not only leading the house, but in our occupations and whatever we're doing. And we also just learn what the definition of manhood is in the men's sessions. As we all know, there are a lot of definitions out there now that are getting put out there. And the one definition that matters is the one that he says. And that's what we learn in the men's sessions. We learn how to be the man that God wants us to be and not the men that we want to be.
This revival of manhood is something that God has really been dealing with me about, because there are a lot of law-based teachings, even concerning manhood. And some of that law-based teaching can be responsible for the development and the furtherance of toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity is the pressure that comes when you see all of the rules that, what did my son call it? All of the man law rules. Like men not supposed to cry. All of the man law rules. I mean, I still have an uncle who still thinks that it is a huge problem if I reach over and hug him, and I just grab him and hug him anyway. You 85 years old, I'm gonna grab you and hug you anyway. But the toxic atmosphere that's been created by some carnal, unsaved, motivational speaker
who decided to tell you what was acceptable and not acceptable, somehow or another became so high-strung that he thought he had better advice for your masculinity than Jesus. And he hadn't, because that toxicity has created a situation where men will either, take flight and leave and not understand it enough to stand in there and hang in there and to make the right decisions that need to be made, or to be able to open up to another man, and sometimes it's a matter of being able to become transparent. Transparency, it's something that a lot of men are afraid of. I don't want you to see my failures. And yet coming to church, even the church started participating in it, because, you ask, well, why is it that there's such a low percentage of men coming to church? Because we're the object of being dogged out a lot of times. The man is the head, and you need to do this, and it's your fault that, and your fault this. And I'm like, I got to be careful, I almost said. Dang, I get with y'all, and I'm like, wait a minute. Ooh, thank you, Jesus. And basically, you're doing what all you know to do. You're thinking, you're supposed to whip your kid, and then 20 years later, you're accused of child abuse. And it got pretty bad. It's like something's wrong with this picture. And you're exactly right. Something is wrong with this picture. It is toxic. That your example should not be a selection from some motivational speaker for you to choose some dude that don't know Jesus to be your example of masculinity. So who is the example of masculinity? It's Jesus. I mean, there's nobody on the planet that is going to doubt his manhood. And so we've been trying to find examples of manhood while we consistently step over the example of manhood, and that's Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the example and the mold that we want to follow. That we want to look at his life. We want to look at his character. We want to look at how he handled certain things. And we want to look at all of the rules. I mean, that is as much operating by the law as anything, is you trying to be a man governed by rules rather than being a man governed by the grace of God that Jesus Christ has given you. And so I want to say to you, there's much grace in your manhood journey, and give yourself a break. Quit beating yourself up. Quit accepting the blame for everything. Quit looking at yourself like you're the source of everybody's problem. I am giving you permission to exhale. Somebody said, wait a minute, that's women. No, you need to exhale too. They were waiting to exhale. We've been waiting a long time for you to exhale. And to understand it's okay to let go of the shame, to let go of the condemnation, to let go of all the things that you've carried for so long, to the point where you accepted it, that I am a failure. Here is the root issue of every man's situation, and it is inferiority. The feeling that you don't matter, the feeling that you fall short, And there's only one way to deal with inferiority, and we have not dealt with it in the right way. What we have done is that we have covered up the authentic you because we're afraid of being found out. I don't really want them to know that this hurts. I don't really want them to know that this is depressing. I don't really want them to know that I think that I'm a failure, that I think that I'm not any good. I don't want them to know. So I'm going to pull a cover over the real me, and I'm going to produce a fake me. And for the most part, when we meet one another, we don't even meet the real you. We meet the manufactured you that you created through the cover. And so what happens is where there's intimacy in your life, and intimacy for most men, intimacy is sex, and most men, intimacy is with a woman, and we have not shared, nor do we understand the vital parts of intimacy shared amongst men. Intimacy is all about the openness that you're afraid of. Intimacy, come into me and see. Is it risky? Yeah, being vulnerable is risky. Being vulnerable simply says, I can be vulnerable and open myself up to somebody, but they might use the information to hurt me. Being vulnerable, you can open yourself up to your wife and it might come back to you in an argument. Being vulnerable is risky. I'm not saying that there are no risk in it, but you're going to have to figure out a way to allow vulnerability to show up in your life, because that's the only way you're going to begin to move into real intimacy, when you're willing to become vulnerable. Now, I would say be very prayerful to who you choose. Can I get a witness? To who you choose to become vulnerable with. And especially in this day and time, you don't want what you share to be on Instagram. And you need to learn, this is a lesson you need to learn. When somebody tell you they're a fool, believe them. Don't get so desperate for relationship and friendship that you're not listening. People will tell you who they are. If you listen close enough, they'll tell you who they are. A man will tell you who he is. See, you got to understand, if there's a cover there, then you're dealing with a manufactured identity. You're dealing with a manufactured man who's hiding. And it doesn't feel real good about, letting you know who he really is. And sometimes I've been in situations where I've talked to somebody and I hear the bull, I understand the bull, and it's kind of difficult because you're dealing with a prophet and a former therapist. So it can't really get by me real quick. And if the prophet don't kick in, the therapist will kick in. But either way, I realize you shoot me bull. And then when I see through the bull and address it, then you say, yeah, you right. You done got caught, right? But the vulnerable man who can figure out how to accomplish this becomes the man who can finally remove the cover and share authentic intimacy. It's great if you can do that with your wife. I'm confessing this. I became extremely vulnerable with my wife to the point of breakdown tears. And then after I finished showing her that, I'm like, oh, crap. Oh, shoot. Hope it don't come up later on. You gonna sit there and talk to me like that, you weak punk? Oh, no, you didn't. All I'm saying is, It's risky. It's worth being prayerful. It's worth taking the time. I believe what we lack as men sometimes is authentic friendship. You need friends. And you've taken a bad situation with, one friendship, and you made it like this is gonna happen with everybody. Again, I got a relative. I love my uncles, man. They cool. 85 and 86, cool. But they're just certain situations like you are still holding out for something that happened 40 years ago. And the question this morning is, how long have you held on to something that happened that hurt you, but you wouldn't let nobody know it hurt you, that devastated you, that even traumatized you, and you wouldn't let them know, and you held on to that? Now, some of you are trying to wonder, where am I going? Jesus is my example, but right now I want to deal with your soul. Man is a spirit. He doesn't have one. He is a spirit. He possesses a soul. Your soul is your thinker, your feeler, your chooser. Your soul is where your mind and your will and your emotions reside. And that area there will be responsible for where you end up. Where you go in life is going to be based on your soul. How many men are in jail today because they could not control their emotions, but their emotions controlled them? I was teaching at a prison one time, and after I finished teaching, one of the guys came up to me and they said, "Dang, Pastor, if I'd have known that, I wouldn't have been here. I lost my temper. I gave authority to my emotions, my negative emotions. My negative emotions came in and moved me to do something that I wouldn't normally do, and here I am in jail." And what would happen if, as men, we could learn how to control our emotions and not allow our emotions to control us? And see, as Christian men, sometimes you're told to ignore your emotions, or sometimes you're told that you don't have emotions. Well, you're a man. Man up. You heard that before? Bunch of bull. Man up. All it does is put pressure on your identity and adds to the struggle in toxicity that you're already dealing with. Man up. What they're saying is, ignore your emotions. Don't confront your emotions. You act like you don't have no emotions. And if you're gonna be emotional, make sure it's a man emotion. Cussing, losing, fighting. You see how demonic that is? And these type of things have been behind the definition of manhood. Well, not anymore. We're going to raise up men around this nation that will understand who they are, and they will understand that Jesus is now the example for their masculinity. You're living in a weird time right now. You're living in a time where, things have changed. Back in the day, you had to initiate the rap. You had to ask for the phone number. That ain't like that today. They coming up to you with freedom and liberty. I don't want nothing from you. I just want to lay with you. For real? Yeah, come on. I ain't got time. It's weird. And manhood has been defined as you're the guy that's susceptible to that. And if you don't accept that invitation, something wrong with you. You can't be the man that likes art and fashion. You got to be the man that likes football and basketball. But what if you don't like football and basketball? And I'm telling you, it's all right to like art and fashion. Because football and basketball doesn't determine or define or should not define your masculinity. Look at all the stuff we've had to deal with over the years, trying to discover who we are, trying to define with clarity our masculinity. And we've allowed the inputs of a demonic world to be our instructor and our example of real manhood, while we continue to push the authentic, real example to side, because that's church stuff, and men don't really go for that. And so we take that toxicity into a relationship. And in that relationship, we produce children with that toxicity. And we have a family with that toxicity. And if it goes deep enough, it was understood you got a side piece. See, y'all got to be careful. You might have relatives you don't even, and you need to find out the history, so your kids won't be marrying their first cousin or their brother. Because Papa was a rolling stone. Wherever he laid his keys was his home. Do you see the situation that we're dealing with? And then the pressure that comes on maybe your sons and even your daughters, because they've lived all their life with a phony, a fake, well-developed impression of who you think you should be. And the covers have yet to be removed. And therefore, the intimacy with a son is impacted. The intimacy with a daughter is impacted. The intimacy with a wife is impacted. The intimacy with another man is impacted, because the cover has remained over the real you. And I am saying this morning, it's time to remove the cover. And you have to remove the cover in front of you first, then look in the mirror and say to yourself and call yourself by name. And I know it seems ridiculous, but to look at yourself like I did one day and say, like I said, Creflo, I forgive you. It was weird as I looked at myself and the reflection looking back at me. I forgive you. I'm tired of the shame. Shame can be devastating. You can walk around behind the cover and just feel so much shame. And yet, there's only really one way to get delivered from shame. Jesus said, "He that believeth on me shall never be put to shame." See, every way out you're looking for goes through Jesus. Every way out goes through Jesus. The church should absolutely have the highest percentage of men over women in the church. Why has that always been an issue?
Grace Life Conference 2023 Homecoming featured 3 power-packed days focused on celebrating the life of grace. Creflo and Taffy Dollar were joined by special guests, topping off a weekend filled with revelation.
Grace Life and the message behind that was something I really needed to hear.
The word has been rich, it's been deep, it's been gold. There's nothing comparable to it. If you need to know purpose while you're a Christian, Grace Life encourages us to live even more so for Christ every day.
It was good to be able to get different perspectives on grace that we ordinarily wouldn't get if we didn't get in this setting here together.
Experience all 9 sessions for a love gift of $50 or more for CDs or $60 or more for DVDs. Celebrate grace. Call the number on your screen, scan the QR code, or visit www.creflo-ministries.org and click eStore while supplies last.
I hope you enjoyed today's broadcast. Now listen, there's more to come this week on this topic of manhood, so I want you to stay locked in. We're going to continue to tear down these false ideas of manhood and toxic masculinity together, and we're going to lift up Jesus Christ as our true example of manhood. I'm so excited, man, and I bet you are too. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, right here on Changing Your World.
Did you attend Grace Life Homecoming in July? Well, the 2024 Grace Life Conference is already in the works. We're taking the fellowship, the music, and the message of grace to another level. Our mentality, ministers and leaders, and youth conference will all take place during Grace Life. That's right. It'll be 4 conferences in one.
The Grace Life Conference is high up there. The praise and worship every single day was so awesome.
Each year it gets better and better, richer and richer. If you want change, this is a place to be.
Take advantage of our early bird special, available through October 20th. Register now to receive a one-time 10% discount on your entire order in the Dome Digital Store during Grace Life 2024. Just scan the QR code, text Grace Life to 51555. Or visit Creflo-Ministries.org. We'll see you in July.
Hopefully you're going to choose to let heaven determine your thinking, because whatever choice you make, then that's going to be your mentality for today.
You try to get in a Hawks game because you just think they love you. Ticket, I have love. Security?
Can you say that he's a way maker? Yes. Can you say that he's a God that sits high and looks low? Yes. As long as you think you can renew by yourself, you're going to just depend on your self-effort to do this. Let the Spirit renew your thoughts and your attitudes.
Get the message of grace any way you want. Streaming live on the Creflo Dollar TV app, mobile app, the Changing Your World podcast, and Daily Confessions on YouTube. Stream service live, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, with re-airs at 2 p.m., 6 p.m., and 10 p.m. Eastern Time.
Thank you, partners and friends. Your love and financial support makes it possible to bring this message into millions of homes all across the globe. The preceding program was brought to you in part by the partners and friends of Creflo Dollar Ministries.